Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Talk Soccer to Me podcast, an American soccer podcast for the American soccer fan, hosted by yours truly, Jack Alt. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd. This is the 11th episode of the Talk Soccer to Me podcast. We got plenty to talk about today. We're going to first start going over everything from the Premier League, where we had some crazy matchups, and then we're going to go to some shocks out of Spain. We're going to hit Germany, we're going to hit Italy, some transfer news, and then we're going to preview the few games that are going on during the middle of the week. But before we get into all the action, make sure to follow Talk Soccer to Me on all social media and streaming services. It's at Talk Soccer to Me on Twitter and TikTok, at Talk Soccer to Me podcast on Instagram. To listen again, Talk Soccer to Me is listed on Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts, as well as a YouTube channel that's recently been launched called Talk Soccer to Me. Follows, positive ratings, 5 stars, listens, views, comments, everything goes an incredibly long way for the podcast. So any interaction is greatly appreciated over here. All listening is greatly appreciated over here. So just thanks to all who follow and listen. All right, and we're going to get started over in the Premier League. There were 10 games this weekend, and the first one we started out with was absolutely crazy. The Premier League got off to an insane start right off the bat. Nottingham Forest hosted Brighton, and the action started right away. About 12 minutes in, it was kind of an unlucky cross. Morgan Gibbs-White, the midfielder for Nottingham Forest, sends it in, goes off Lewis Dunk. Forest go up 1-0 in the 12th minute. Morgan Gibbs-White then followed up with another goal off an Alonga corner in the 25th minute to make it 2-0. And then Chris Wood, off an Anthony Alonga cross, made it 3-0 in the 32nd minute. 3-0 going into halftime. This was a start and a half for Nottingham Forest. And then about 19 minutes after the start of halftime, Chris Wood got a second goal, another cross from Alonga. This is Alonga's third assist so far, and as it was 4-0. A penalty 5 minutes later in the 69th minute made it 5-0. Nico Williams capped off relentless pressure by Nottingham Forest to make it 6-0 in the 89th minute, and Jota Silva in the 91st minute capitalizes off a poor giveaway by Brighton to make this game 7-0. That was the final score. Nottingham Forest 7, Brighton 0. A touchdown for Nottingham Forest. This was a hell of a performance by Nottingham Forest to come out after a 5-0 beating at the hands of Bournemouth from the week before. Get in front of your home crowd, score a touchdown against Brighton, a decent Brighton side. Definitely a team in the Premier League you wouldn't be expecting to lose 7-0, even if they're away from home. Chris Wood just continues to be an absolutely dominant goal-scoring machine. I spoke earlier in the season that I was worried as Chris Wood accumulated a lot of Nottingham Forest's early goals, but this team has proven that it doesn't need to rely on just Wood for goals. I mean, yeah, he got 3 today, but there were still 4 other from open play by Nottingham Forest players. Anthony Alonga looks incredible. Yeah, hindsight's 2020, but you got to look at Manchester United and wonder, what were you doing there? Morgan Gibbs-White, fantastic. Matt Sells, fantastic. I mean, coming into this game, according to ESPN, the odds were shared. These teams were both plus 165 money lines. Yeah, Brighton held possession. Nottingham Forest only walked away from 38% of it. But when you're that clinical, in front of goal, in your countering, in your play, oh my gosh, this Nottingham Forest team just continues to impress me this season. I really do hope for the sake of football that they're a Champions League team next year. Yeah, that was one to forget for Brighton. I think on the flip side, you hope Brighton can do what Nottingham Forest did last week after Bournemouth and just kind of forget when you receive an absolute ass whooping. After this result, at the end of the weekend, Nottingham Forest is currently sitting 3rd in the Premier League, while Brighton is sitting down in 10th, which isn't a terrible spot to be. Forest's goal differential took a big boost this week, while Brighton's suffered heavily. Moving on to the second game of the week, Bournemouth, coming off, as we previously mentioned, that fantastic 5-0 victory against Nottingham Forest, hosted league leaders Liverpool. Liverpool, who've just been in an incredible run of form, kind of saw that kept going this weekend. Mohamed Salah opened the scoring in the 30th minute. It was a bit of an interesting call for the penalty, but it's Mo Salah, so he's going to put it away. Gets his 20th goal in the Premier League, and then 45 minutes later, in the 75th minute, Mo Salah gets his 21st goal in the Premier League. He hit this just absolute beautiful shot if you want to call it. It could have been a pass, could have been a chip. He just kind of hit it precisely from the top left of the box, put it on his left foot, and almost just passed it into the top left corner. The goalkeeper had no chance, Ariza Balaga. And yeah, final score, Liverpool going to Bournemouth. They win 2-0. Bournemouth really did well in this game. Obviously, losing 2-0 at home never really reflects well. It's just Liverpool have this inevitability to them, this calmness, this killer instinct, and frankly, it's the stuff of champions. Obviously, it's incredibly premature to call Liverpool champions. They have 14 games to go. 15, while the rest of the Premier League have 14 games to go. It's just that they don't panic. They don't freak out. They play well. They play incredibly well. They're disciplined. They have this, again, inevitability that it just seems like every time they're playing, they're going to win. Mo Salah is going to score. The defense is going to look incredibly solid. The back line of Van Dijk and Konate is as good as anywhere in Europe. And this is a clinic in how to win the Premier League. And provided a massive collapse and Arsenal going perfect, Liverpool really do look like they could win the league if they play like the way they played against Bournemouth. With this win, Liverpool stay at the top of the Premier League, and they have the massive game in hand, even if it's against an Everton team that's looking much better than it did previously in the season. Bournemouth stays at 7th. They would have had a good chance to jump ahead of a couple teams this week, but Liverpool's always going to be a tough matchup. Again, you just really hope Bournemouth can bounce back from this. They played well. I think they will. They've been impressive the entire season, and Liverpool are just Liverpool. There's really not much many teams in Europe can do about that. The third game in the Premier League that we are going to talk about this weekend, Everton hosted Leicester City. These are two teams that are kind of sitting towards the bottom of the table. Everton came into this game at 16th place, while Leicester City were sitting in 18th place. Everton was about 6 points ahead of Leicester City. So whoever was able to come out on top, it was going to be a massive result for. Everton didn't want that gap to close because they came out strong. Jordan Pickford, off the kickoff, sent a long ball down, takes a bounce, takes a touch. Abdoulaye Doucouré puts it away first minute. Within 20 seconds. First minute's generous. Within 20 seconds, Everton was up against Leicester City, and that was just a reflection of how it was going to be. It was eerily similar to the Tottenham game where Everton came out swinging, was up 3 goals at halftime, because Beto put the game at 2-0 in the 6th minute. A fantastic pass by James Tarkowski sent him through, puts it away, and then at the end of halftime, 45 plus 2 minutes in, a really nice pass by James Garner sets Beto again, makes it 3-0 in a halftime, just like the Tottenham game. However, there wasn't any threat of a late second half comeback as Iliman Ndiaye showed some incredible hustle off the left wing. Sloppy play by Leicester. Goal, 90th minute. Everton 4, Leicester 0. This was a game Everton was favored coming into. And yeah, massive result for an Everton team that has been at the threat of relegation. It feels like we've gotten in a time machine, and we are watching the Everton of old under David Moyes. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, when they were a team that was pushing the top 4, finishing 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. And I know maybe that's premature, as it's only 3 games in a row where they've picked up a victory, but 3 wins in a row is 3 wins in a row, and that's incredible for Everton, especially when Everton have been teetering towards relegation so closely over the last 2 to 3 years. They're coming out of these games, just like the Tottenham game, just like this game against Leicester City, fighting, ready to go. They look incredibly motivated. They're stomping on teams' throats early, and now they're only 2 points behind Tottenham, 3 points behind Manchester United. They get another couple good results, keep this good form going. David Moyes could have these boys not even sniffing relegation in about 5 or 6 games' time if they keep playing the way they're playing. I don't know if it's a new manager bump. I don't know how long this form could continue or is going to continue for Everton, but something's clicking. David Moyes is doing something right, and for the sake of their fans, I think everyone's enjoying this run of form for Everton, except maybe people who don't like Everton and their Merseyside rivals in Liverpool, as Everton are now in a good run of form as they have Liverpool coming up in their game in hand that they have over the rest of the Premier League. Tough result for Leicester. They're sitting they're sitting 17th now, still in the relegation spots. I think I'm going to talk more about it later after the Ipswich Southampton game on kind of the state of relegation in the Premier League. But a day to forget for the Foxes. The next game on Saturday in the Premier League actually features the 2 other teams that are sitting in the relegation spots. Ipswich Town, who are sitting 19th, hosted Southampton, who are sitting in 20th. So massive points for either team. Southampton, whose season looks kind of hopeless at this point, it's just hoping not to be the worst team ever in the Premier League. And Ipswich Town kind of keep up their chances for the fight out of relegation. Well, the game started actually really well for Southampton. It was a decent finish by Joe Aribo in the 21st minute to give them a 1-0 lead. Liam Delap found himself away on a one-on-one versus goalie, finished nice under pressure, made it 1-1 in the 30th minute, and then towards the end, Paul Onachu in the 87th minute. It was a good save from the keeper for Ipswich Town, Aro Muric, but Onachu was in the right place at the right time, and Southampton picked up the 3 points. Massive 3 points for them, even if relegation looks inevitable. Ipswich is going to be feeling like they could have done better. They more shots, more opportunities at home. They kind of really struggled at home this season. This was only the second win in the Premier League for Southampton this season. This was their first win away from home. So a massive result, even if the thought or the chance of not getting relegated doesn't seem like it's going to happen for Southampton this year. So after the Leicester City-Everton game, the Ipswich Town-Southampton game, the teams sitting in the relegation spots are Leicester City, Ipswich Town, and Southampton. These are the three teams that were promoted from the Championship last year. In last year's season, in the 2023-2024 in the Premier League, the three teams that were recently promoted were all relegated. So as things stand in the table right now, the three teams that were promoted into the Premier League will be the three teams that are going to be relegated for the second year in a row, and that's a massive problem for the Premier League. It's essentially going to boil down to, is the league just 17 teams who are permanent fixtures and three teams who are going to let compete and try and make some money for a year? The Premier League has an issue. I don't know what the solution is. That's why I'm talking about it. That's why I'm borderline complaining. It's running the risk of the parity that has made the English game so wonderful compared to other leagues. But you look at this table and you wonder who's going to go down outside of the teams that are recently promoted, because teams like Aston Villa, Fulham, Brentford, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, they're playing great. They're not going to sit anywhere close to a relegation spot. Even the bigger teams that are struggling, Manchester United, Tottenham, and then Premier League staples like West Ham and Everton, it would take a lot for them to get relegated. So the Premier League's got an issue. The three teams that just came up are likely going to go down for the second year in a row. I don't know how the Premier League is going to address it. Maybe it's more in parachute payments, more money distributed to the Championship, but I don't think it's good for the game of soccer in England if that continues to happen. The next matchup we're going to head to in England, Newcastle hosted Fulham. It's the second to last game on Saturday that we're going to cover. Newcastle started out the game strong. Anthony Gordon went on a pretty commanding run. Sent the ball in. Jacob Murphy got a goal 37 minutes in. Newcastle took that 1-0 lead into halftime. However, Fulham did not let that halftime deficit worry them. They came out swinging. A pretty poor pass from Tonali towards the back line allowed Fulham to counter. Raul Jimenez got behind the ball. 61st minute, tied the game up 1-1. And then 21 minutes later, a free kick in for Fulham was perfectly placed at the near post. Rodrigo Muniz scored in the 82nd minute. Fulham 2, Newcastle 1. With the result of this game, Fulham now moves up into 9th place in the Premier League with 36 points and a positive goal differential, while Newcastle United stay at 6th. They get jumped by other teams. They could have been 4th if they won this game, but they're going to spend a couple more days in the Premier League at 6th place. 12 wins, 5 draws, 7 losses, same as Manchester City, plus 13 goal differential, 41 total points. Newcastle may be their own worst enemy and the reason they don't make it back into the Champions League. I do think they're primed for a European spot this season, as they currently, again, sit in 6th. But it's inconsistency that continues to plague this team. When you watch Newcastle, you don't know who you're going to watch. There's some games where they come out, they can break, they can press, and they look like they could beat any team in the world. I mean, I referenced the Carabao Cup semi-final first leg against Arsenal, where they thoroughly beat down on Arsenal. But then you have matches like today where Fulham come to town. And yes, Fulham is a good team. But if you're a team with Champions League aspirations like Newcastle, you shouldn't be losing 2-1 at home. You shouldn't look flat in the attack for large portions of the second half. I can't get a read on this Newcastle team. It's like one week they could be one of the best teams in the world, a top 15, 10 team in the world. And other weeks, they just kind of look like a lower to mid-tier Premier League side. And today was one of those days. And yeah, I mean, they hit the post. They had chances, but Newcastle beat Newcastle today as much as Fulham beat Newcastle today. Next up was the last game on Saturday. A result that frankly surprised me. Wolves hosted Aston Villa. These were two teams kind of on different trajectories. Villa, sitting around the 7th, 8th, ninth spot in the Premier League, but having a strong Champions League season so far. Wolves within threat of relegation, currently sitting 17th, I believe. 18th, actually, the last relegation spot going into this game. But you cannot tell that one team was a relegation team and one team was a Champions League contender. Jean-Richner Bellegarde opened the scoring in the 12th minute from Wolves. It was an open goal. The rivalry was pumping. The crowd was absolutely electric as Wolves took a 1-0 lead. And then at the end of the game, Matheus Cunha put it away in the 97th minute. A nice solo run as Villa were looking to get the equalizing goal. This was a result that I did not see coming. Yes, there was a rivalry aspect to it and Wolves being at home. And if you know anything about sports, both those factors can really throw any expectations you have for a game off. However, with all the praise towards Villa and their transfer policy, with guys like Marco Asensio and Marcus Rashford coming in and recently finishing top 8 in the Champions League, you did wonder, could there be some sort of positive momentum that really pushed Villa through? But frankly, they looked flat. They stunned them. I mean, this is the Wolves team that was coming off 4 straight defeats in the Premier League. And they got their chances and they made the most of it. They were up 1-0 for an incredibly significant amount of time in the game, and that didn't deter them. That didn't stop them. Villa really weren't able to find their breakthrough. You imagine this team's going to look better with the reinforcements they got coming in, but ultimately, I was surprised. This game surprised me. There's really not much else to say. Wolves fought hard, played hard, deserved the victory. The first match on Sunday in the Premier League was Brentford hosting Tottenham. Brentford came into the game with 31 points. Tottenham coming into the game with 24 points. Tottenham finally got that win they so desperately needed. In the 29th minute, Son Heung-min put in a fantastic corner. It created an own goal. I'm going to give all the credit to Son. He's been great with corners this year. He scored directly from one against Manchester United. And then Son just continued his world-class ability as he set up Pape Matar Sarr with a nice pass. He was able to dink it under the goalkeeper, and Tottenham won this game 2-0. This was Tottenham's first league win since December. And that is an insane statement that this was Tottenham's first league win since December, but boy, did they desperately need this one. If they hadn't won this, they would be sitting 16th place in the Premier League right now. You may even be able to say Tottenham are pretty lucky to walk away from this one with a victory. Brentford didn't play poorly. They had more shots on goal, higher possession, more corners. I mean, they fought. They had plenty of chances. And Postecoglou got that result that he and all the Tottenham fans so desperately needed because it was getting bad. Another poor run of form like this, they're flirting with relegation. And it won't happen. There's not a world where Tottenham get relegated. But a club of Tottenham's stature should never be in the same conversation as flirting with relegation. And another bad run of form could do it. This is a big win for Tottenham. They needed it. And they're going to need a couple more. So, all in all, after that result, Tottenham find themselves in 14th place on 27 points. And 4 points and 3 spots ahead of them, Brentford are currently sitting 11th with 31 points. Both teams are just going to be probably solid mid-table teams this year. Nothing more to report here. The next Sunday game we're going to head to is Old Trafford. Manchester United hosted Crystal Palace. Both these teams sitting in the bottom half of the table. Manchester United came into this game with 29 points. Crystal Palace came into this game with 27 points. And not much happened in the first half. Game was 0-0. But poor defending by Manchester United on a free kick. And frankly, an unlucky bounce for Andre Onana off the crossbar. Saw the ball land at the feet of Jean-Philippe Mateta in the 64th minute. Mateta scored his 5th goal in the last 5 games. And then 25 minutes later in the 89th minute, a wonderful pass led to Mateta's 6th goal in 5 games. And with that result, Manchester United lose another game, their 11th loss in the Premier League. And they're jumped by Crystal Palace in the table. Crystal Palace 2, Manchester United 0. Ruben Amorim's really got to wonder, why did I leave Sporting? Manchester United is a club in crisis. This is a crisis. This is another loss. This is a loss against a Crystal Palace team that frankly is average. I will give them all the respect of the world. Mateta is a good striker. There's good guys in their team, but this is an average Premier League side. This is a team where a club with the stature of Manchester United should not be losing to. But they're poor at defending. They can't attack. They got, maybe 2 shots on target the entire game, despite having 2/3 possession. Amorim looks defeated. This whole Marcus Rashford saga hasn't been good for the club. Man United, I think, really needs to tread water. Stay away from the relegation zone, tread water, and survive until the summer where you can make some signings, reshuffle the squad, and figure out where you're going to go with this team. Because every week now, it feels like we're talking about Manchester United and a new low that they're hitting. And this is just another one. Credit to Palace, though. They've had Manchester United's number in the last couple of years. They didn't get all the opportunities in the world, but they were clinical when they did. Not hard to beat Manchester United this year, it feels like, but a win's a win for a team like Crystal Palace in this situation. We're now going to head to London for the last Sunday game. Arsenal hosted Manchester City. Coming into this game, Arsenal were sitting second. Manchester City were sitting fourth. This is also on the back of an incredible 2-2 draw earlier in the season, which had enough drama for a soap opera. So there was a lot of anticipation going into this matchup, and Arsenal started off hot. It was a pretty poor giveaway by Akanji. 105 seconds in the game, Rice gets the ball, nice pass to Havertz to Odegaard. Arsenal's up 1-0 in the second minute. Arsenal then scored a couple minutes later with Gabriel Martinelli, but it was eventually ruled offsides. The game went into halftime, finished 1-0. Kai Havertz had an opportunity in the first half to make it 2-0, kind of a wide open goal, and somehow he completely missed it. That miss really made you wonder, okay, is this one of those games where Manchester City is going to win? Because you don't put chances like that away, you're going to lose games. Then 10 minutes into halftime, Savinho makes a wonderful turn of the ball into the box, floats up across. Erling Haaland gets the best of William Saliba and ties the game up 1-1 in the 55th minute. But not even 2 minutes later, didn't even have time to breathe from that Haaland goal. Foden gives the ball away right outside the Manchester City box. Maybe doesn't see Thomas Partey, who's kind of behind the referee, but Partey pops up, takes a shot from outside the box, gets a generous deflection off the back of John Stones, but hey, that's why you shoot the ball. And Arsenal are up 2-1, but it did not stop there. The 18-year-old left back Miles Lewis-Skelly made it 3-1 in the 62nd minute. A wonderful counterattack 10 minutes later by Arsenal saw Kai Havertz redeem himself for his earlier miss. Made it 4-1 in the 76th minute off an assist from Gabriel Martinelli. Again, a wonderful corner. And then Arsenal just kept piling on the misery towards Manchester City. And in the 93rd minute, the 17-year-old Ethan Nwaneri came in, hit a wonderful shot, curled it on his left foot into the bottom left corner. And to my surprise, and maybe everyone's surprise, the final score was Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1. I have a lot to talk about regarding this game. First, I can't remember the last time that Arsenal has beaten Manchester City like that. There was a long, dark period for Arsenal fans where Arsenal couldn't even get a result against Manchester City, and they finally got their first league win against them in years last year. It was a 1-0 victory at the Emirates. But you might have to go back to the latter years of Arsene Wenger at Arsenal before Pep Guardiola shows up from Manchester City to really remember the last time that Arsenal thoroughly dominated Manchester City in a game where they're playing each other. There was a result October 24th, 2010 in Manchester where Arsenal went on the road and defeated them 3-0. Now, there was a 3-0 Community Shield win in 2014 where Arsenal got the best of Manchester City 3-0. The Community Shield obviously is a glorified friendly. But again, back to the point. I don't know if this is a stepping stone or a turning point for each team, one in an upward trajectory and one in a downward trajectory. But since the Premier League has regularly been on in the United States, I have not seen Arsenal beat Manchester City like that. Second, the thing that's most perplexing about Manchester City's struggles is the thing that they're struggling most with, in my opinion, is Pep Guardiola's bread and butter. It's control of the ball, being strong in possession, and progressing the ball from the defense to the midfield to the forwards. It was Barcelona in the late 2000s, early 2010s that really brought the tiki-taka style of football to the world when they won everything, it felt like, in a 5 to 6 year span. And obviously, soccer's changed. The game's changed. Guardiola's tactics have changed. But when you see him struggle in the things that he perfected at one point in 2010, 2011, you wonder how. You wonder how that could be. These guys should be drilled. These guys should have doctorates in the Guardiola school of passing, in the Guardiola school of control, on the Guardiola school of discipline. And they're giving balls away. They're playing incredibly sloppy. They can't play out the back. Akanji looks completely lost if you make him make a tough pass in the back near his goal. The whole time Arsenal, with guys like Saliba, Gabriel, Partey, Raya, they looked comfortable. Even if there were 3-4 Manchester City players pressing, they looked comfortable. And Pep Guardiola and his team looked lost at the thing you'd expect Pep Guardiola to be the best at. Third was, is this game gonna legitimize a title run by Arsenal, an Arsenal team that's very much in form despite having a poor time with injuries, or is the weight of Liverpool too much? Because anytime you're able to defeat a top 6 team, or better yet, even Manchester City at home 5-1, being second place in the Premier League, you got to wonder, like, okay, is this a team that is making a run for the league the same way they have for the last 2 years? And I don't know. I look at that gap with Liverpool having 6 points, which could potentially be 9 points, and playing the way they're playing, and I can't see a world where Arsenal come back. I can't see a world where Arsenal close that gap. For an entertainment standpoint, it'd be fantastic. But if the teams progress at the best they've been playing this season, and even if Liverpool were to regress a little bit from their best, it may not be enough for Arsenal. Games like this will give you the hope. It'll give you the momentum. It'll open up the conversation. And it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if Arsenal won the Premier League this season. But I just don't know if they have the capability to cut that lead down on Liverpool. I think they've got the ability to win out most of the games the way they did last year. But that gap that Liverpool has created over Arsenal may be a mountain that is too much for Arsenal to climb. Don't think they're going to win the Premier League. The last Premier League game of the weekend on Monday saw Chelsea host West Ham United. This was an all-London affair. Pretty interesting as it saw Graham Potter return to Chelsea for the first time since he was sacked, I believe, at the beginning of last year, the 2023-2024 season. Potter looked like at first he might have get the one up on Chelsea. A pretty poor back pass by Levi Colwill. Saw Jared Bowen pounce on an opportunity. Makes it 1-0 in the 42nd minute. The second half, though, was all Chelsea. Pedro Neto had a fine finish in the 64th minute to tie the game up. And then Cole Palmer sent a ball in that was deflected off Aaron Wan-Bissaka in the 74th minute to make it 2-1. I did believe the goal was called an own goal against Wan-Bissaka, but with a player like Palmer's quality, any ball that he touches has a chance on going in the net. And sometimes that's why you attempt shots like that. Or just put the ball in. You hope to get deflections. You hope to get any little nick on the ball that could potentially put it in the back of the net. And this was an all right win for Chelsea. These are one of the ones where you walk away and you'd be like, okay, we won. Can't really be proud about it. Let's maybe learn from it. See where we went wrong. See where we kind of faltered in maybe creation or defending. West Ham had chances and never really felt like it was going to amount to anything. And yeah, Chelsea keep their Champions League aspirations going. They move up to 4th. They jumped Manchester City and Newcastle with this result. They're now sitting 4th place, 4 points behind Nottingham Forest, 7 points behind Arsenal, and 13 points behind the league leaders Liverpool. West Ham are now sitting in 15th at 27 points. Tottenham's also at 27 points, but West Ham has a significantly worse goal differential. They're a point ahead of Everton. They are 8 points ahead of Wolves, and they are 10 points ahead of Leicester City, who currently sit in the top relegation spot. Yeah, it's not really much to report back. One of those games where neither team played well, and the team that got a victory is going to be most happy to just walk away from this one and take what they can get. And that wraps up the the Premier League. Sorry, just always thinking about the Champions League. Premier League table as it stands, the Champions League spots are currently being held by Liverpool, Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea. Liverpool obviously leading the league. Manchester City and Newcastle are sitting 5th and 6th in those Europa League spots. Bournemouth are currently sitting 7th. Now, there is a chance this year where the English League could get 8 spots in Europe, but we're not going to go over that until the end of the year, where there's maybe a chance of that. Manchester United and Tottenham find themselves pretty far down on the table, while Leicester City, Ipswich Town, and Southampton are currently sitting in the relegation spots of the table. Well, that wraps up the Premier League. So we're going to head over to Spain, talk about the Spanish League. The first result on Saturday saw Atletico Madrid host Mallorca at home. They got a solid 2-0 victory. Antoine Griezmann put the game away in the 93rd minute, scoring the second goal. He just continues on his great season. Great result for Atletico, and we're going to get more into the scope of the league once we talk about all the games we got to talk about. The shocker of the weekend is the Catalonian side, Barcelona's second team, Espanyol, took points off Real Madrid 1-0. I know there was a little controversy about an Espanyol player who kind of committed a pretty dirty foul, and then later on being the man who scored, Carlos Romero. Real Madrid dominated this game in every facet except with the most important, and that's putting the ball in the back of the net. Definitely going to be much disappointment by Real Madrid here, especially considering the other results as Barcelona defeat Alaves 1-0. The solo goal was by Robert Lewandowski in the 61st minute. And essentially, with everything that's happened this weekend, the title race in La Liga looks absolutely enticing, especially after Real Madrid dropped points visiting Espanyol this weekend. They're still sitting at the top of the league. They're at 49 points. Atletico Madrid's 1 point behind them. All the momentum in the world. Barcelona's 4 points behind them. So Real Madrid's 49, Atletico 48, Barcelona 45. Barcelona has one of, if not the best attack in the world right now. You got to give respect to Bilbao. They're currently sitting 41, only 8 points behind the leaders. And yes, 16 games before the end of the season is a lot. There's so much that could happen between now and then. Real, Atletico, and Barcelona all still have to play in a multitude of Champions League fixtures. Barcelona having the advantage of finishing in the top 8. But this is going to be one to look out for. This is going to be one to keep paying attention to, people. La Liga is going to be very interesting going down the line. And I just hope that when they're at 22 games played and when they're at 32 games played, that the top of this table is just as tight as it is now. Now we're going to head to Southern Europe and Italy as kind of all the major teams dropped points this weekend. Atalanta was coming off a decent draw against Barcelona in the Champions League, and they were not able to get the best out of Torino at home. They opened up the scoring in the 35th minute, but Torino tied it back up in the 40th minute, and a dominant Atalanta side dropped points. And considering everything else that happened the weekend, they're definitely going to regret it. Juventus bounced back after a long string of poor results. Plenty of criticism from myself. They got a nice 4-1 victory. Randall Kolo Muani got 2 goals in the 61st and 64th minute. Vlahovic scored in the 90th minute, and Francisco Conceição put it away in the 92nd minute. And this is a little worrying for Juventus at first, as they were down 1-0 into the 4th minute. I won't say that all is well in Juventus, but hey, a win is a win. Milan derby, Derby del Milana. Saw AC Milan hosting Inter Milan. Inter Milan trying to keep up with Napoli at the top of the table. They do have a game in hand, and they were barely able to salvage points. Steven de Vrij tied the game up in the 93rd minute to finish 1-1. Tijani Reindeers did get a goal for Milan in the 45th minute. Our boy Christian Pulisic did score. Yunus Musa did not feature. He did start in the midfield as he's coming off that poor red card in the Champions League. Again, pretty dominant result by Inter Milan, but it didn't matter because they didn't score more goals. Game finished 1-1. Roma played spoiler to Napoli. The former Roma man himself, Leonardo Spinazzola, actually opened the scoring for Napoli in the 29th minute, but Angelino tied the game up in the 92nd minute. Napoli, who are sitting at the top of Serie A, could have extended that lead at the top of the league against Inter Milan, but they were unable to do that. Roma, in their incredibly inconsistent season, move up to 9th with this draw. And yeah, that's all I really got regarding the Italian league. Still an incredible amount of potential towards the top. Napoli sitting at the top with 54 points. Inter Milan at 51 points. Atalanta 47. And then you kind of have your first big gap is Lazio are sitting at 42 points. Juventus 40 points. Fiorentina 39. Then it goes Bologna, Milan, Roma. Parma, Venezia, and Monza are currently sitting in the relegation spots. Napoli has 3 points in Inter Milan, but Inter Milan does have a game in hand. And unfortunately, it has been slowly slipping away for Atalanta. A good run of form can change that, but they've got a lot of Champions League football to play. And I wonder if that's where they'll prioritize the rest of their season. So, it's crazy how the ebbs and the flows of these things work because, a month, maybe 2 months ago, I thought Serie A would have been the best title fight in Europe, but right now it's looking like Spain. It's crazy how that flips, just like that. And hey, you never know. In a month or two, it could be Serie A that we're paying attention to for an interesting title fight. So always got to keep on the lookout. The final European league we're going to get into is Bundesliga over in Germany. First game we're going to talk about is Borussia Dortmund going into Heidenheim and picking up a 2-1 victory with goals from Guirassy and Bayer. And, I know Dortmund are sitting in a, frankly, terrible spot in the league, the bottom half of the table. But they're still a pretty big side, and they desperately needed to win. And they're actually only 4 points outside of a Champions League spot. Leipzig, Stuttgart, Mainz, Mönchengladbach, Werder Bremen, Freiburg, Wolfsburg, and Dortmund are all sitting within 4 points. So a good run of form can really turn things around for Dortmund. And next thing you know, they could be in the Champions League spots. So wins like this are crucial. And then Bayern Munich, trying to keep that lead over Bayer Leverkusen at the top. It's currently a 6-point lead. Got a little nerve-wracking for Bayern there. They go up early. Musiala scores in the 19th minute. Harry Kane makes it 2-0 before halftime. Then they come out, they're killing it. They go up 3-0 in the 46th minute. Gnabry makes it 4-0 in the 54th minute. But then Holstein Kiel, a team sitting towards the bottom of Bundesliga, made it interesting. They got a goal in the 67th minute. Then they make it 4-2 in the 91st minute. And then in the 93rd minute, they made it 4-3. But Bayern was able to put it away with their 29 shots on target, which is absolutely insane. Final score, Bayern Munich 4, Holstein Kiel 3. And then Bayer Leverkusen picked up a 3-1 victory over Hoffenheim. Goals from Boniface, Frimpong, Patrick Schick. A Grimaldo red card did make things interesting as Hoffenheim scored right after that, but it didn't matter. Leverkusen win. Bundesliga standings as the table currently sits. Bayern Munich leads the league with 51 points after 20 games. Bayer Leverkusen is not far behind them with 45 points. It only takes a week or two to cut that lead down. Frankfurt, there's a decent gap, 7 points to Frankfurt in third, and Leipzig's in fourth. Obviously, I just mentioned all the teams in between Leipzig and Dortmund. And right now, Heidenheim, Holstein Kiel, and Bochum are sitting in the relegation spots. I don't know if Leverkusen's going to make this a title fight. They had a great run last year, and Bayern struggled. But 6 points with 14 games to go, it's going to be tight. I don't know. I don't know Bayern Munich. I don't know Bayer Leverkusen. I think Bayern Munich's going to be A-okay. So we're going to go over all the games you have to watch this week. I can't say it's a crazy exciting week. It's just a lot of cup matches. First on Tuesday in the quarterfinal of Copa del Rey, Atletico Madrid host Getafe. PSG play a third division side in the round of 16 of the French Cup. Stuttgart host Augsburg in the quarterfinals of the German Cup. And Atalanta host Bologna in the quarterfinals of the Italian Cup. On Wednesday, Arsenal head to Newcastle for the second leg of the Carabao Cup semifinals. Newcastle currently has a 2-0 lead on aggregate. It's going to be very hard. Arsenal is favored, but it's going to be very hard to go to St. James's Park and turn that 2-goal lead around. I think Newcastle will be headed to a cup final. In the quarterfinals of the Spanish Copa del Rey, Real Madrid head to Leganes. Bayer Leverkusen hosts Cologne in the quarterfinals of the German Cup. And then a big quarterfinal matchup in Italy. AC Milan host Roma. Then on Thursday, Liverpool host Tottenham. In the other Carabao Cup semifinal, Tottenham have a 1-0 lead over Liverpool. So it should be interesting to see if Liverpool can pull away at home. The other matches of the Spanish Copa del Rey quarterfinals, Real Sociedad hosts Osasuna and Valencia hosts Barcelona. Fiorentina hosts Inter Milan in the Italian Serie A, the game that's been needed to make up. So let's see if Inter Milan can catch up to Atalanta at the top of the table. And that's really everything for the rest of the week. We will go over the games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week on the episode that will release Friday, because I know there's some decent matchups on Friday afternoon. I will mention them because sometimes some people don't get to the podcast till later in the day on Friday. Manchester United hosts Leicester City in the FA Cup, and Bayern Munich hosts Werder Bremen in the Bundesliga. As for the transfer window, I can't say it was the most exciting winter transfer window. Evan Ferguson went from Brighton to West Ham. All the players who headed to Aston Villa, players like Marco Asensio, Marcus Rashford, Lloyd Kelly went to Juventus from Newcastle. Jeffrey Schlupp went from Crystal Palace to Celtic. Tottenham was able to secure Tell on loan from Bayern Munich, I believe. But it wasn't any big money this January. I mean, Manchester City spent some money. Guys like Marmoush and the young kid from Uzbekistan. But definitely a disappointing January transfer window. Well, that's it, folks. That's all I got for you today. If you've made it this far into the podcast, and it's not one of our longer episodes, I really appreciate you. Again, it's Talk Soccer to Me on all social medias. Actually, Talk Soccer to Me podcast on Instagram. We post reels from the show, different clips with pictures and videos and whatnot. The whole podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Podcast, Apple Podcasts. And we've currently stepped into the YouTube world. We're posting the entire podcast on YouTube. You can watch as a video or as a podcast in the YouTube app, as well as we're now posting on YouTube Shorts. So, again, if you made it this far in the episode, I thank you for your appreciation. This is Talk Soccer to Me, an American soccer podcast for the American soccer fan. It's Tuesday, February 4th. I actually think I misspoke earlier in the episode. It's not February 3rd. It's February 4th. And if you made it this far, thank you. I love you. Have a great day.